Good day to all. The next topic is about risk management. So, risk management is a process used by the project managers to minimize any potential problems that may negatively impact a project's timetable or project time schedule. Risk can be termed as any unexpected errors that might affect the people, processes, technology, and resources involved in a project. Even the most carefully planned project can run into trouble. No matter how well you plan, your project can always encounter unexpected problems. Team members get sick or quit. Resources that you are depending on turned out to be unavailable. Even the weather can throw you for a loop like snowstorm. So that means you are helpless against unknown problems. You can use risk planning to identify the potential problems that could cause trouble for your project, analyze how likely they are to occur, take action to prevent the risks you can avoid, and minimize the ones that you cannot. So a risk can be termed as any uncertain event or condition that might affect your project. Not all risks are negative. Some events like finding an easier way to do an activity or conditions like lower prices for certain materials can help your project. When this happens, we call it as an opportunity, but it's still handled just like a risk. There are no guarantees on any project. Even the simplest activity can turn into unexpected problems. Anything that might occur to change the outcome of a project activity, we call that as a risk. A risk can be an event or it can be a condition. Either way, it's something that may or may not happen. But if it does, then it will force you to change the way you and your team work on the project. If your project requires that you stand on the edge of a cliff, then there is a risk that you could fall. If it's very windy out or if the ground is slippery and uneven, then falling is most likely. When you are planning your project, risks are still uncertain. They haven't happened yet, but eventually some of the risks that you plan for do happen, and that's when you have to deal with them. There are four basic ways to handle the risk: avoid the risk, mitigate the risk, transfer the risk, and accept the risk. So risk management is the act or practice of dealing with the project risk. It includes planning for risk, assessing the risk, developing a risk response strategy, and monitoring the risk to determine how the risk could able to change the project life cycle. So the project risk, we can tell, is the effect of uncertainty on the project as a whole arising from all sources of uncertainty, includes individual risk representing the exposure of stakeholders to the implications of variations in project outcome, both positive and negative. The risk management plan tells you how you are going to handle the risk in your project. It documents how you will assess the risk, who is responsible for doing it, and how often you will do risk planning. Some risks are technical, like a component that might turn out to be difficult to use otherwise. Some others are external, like changes in the market or even problems with the weather. So the project risk management includes the process of conducting risk management planning, identification, indentation, analysis, response planning, response implementation, and monitoring risk on the project. The objective of the risk management plan or the project risk management is to increase the probability or impact of positive risk and to decrease the negative risks in order to optimize the chances of getting the project to be successful. Why we are telling risk management is important? Because it will help to avoid the litigation, that means the process of taking legal actions against the company, revenue loss, and reputation, which means the negative public perception. Risk management elements are risk identification. So it's a more disciplined process involved using checklist of potential risks and evaluating the likelihood that those events might happen on the project. Some companies and industries develop risk checklists based on experience from their past projects. So identifying the sources of risk by category is another method for exploring the potential risk of a project. Some of them are like technical, cost, schedule, client, contractual, weather, financial, political, environmental, and people. So sometimes what we will do, how we are making the framework for work breakdown structure, the same way we will prepare the risk breakdown structure also. So what exactly the risk breakdown structure organizes is that have been identified into categories using a table with increasing level of details to the right. That is like in the first column it will be the task, second column the potential risk. Second one is risk assessment. So risk assessment means it is the kind of impact of the risk on the given project or task. So once the potential risk has been identified, the project team then evaluate or assess each risk based on the probability that the risk event will occur and the potential loss associated with it or the potential impact associated with it. As I mentioned already, not all risks are equal. Some risk events are more likely to happen than others, and the cost of a risk can vary greatly. Evaluating the risk for probability of occurrence and the severity of the potential loss to the project is the next step in the risk management process. Third one is risk mitigation. So risk mitigation, once if the risk is identified and evaluated or assessed, the project team try to develop a risk mitigation plan, which is a plan to reduce the impact of the unexpected events. So during mitigation, we will do various ways like risk avoidance, risk sharing, risk reduction, and risk transfer. So these are all the four kinds of categories or ways to deal with the risk. The first one is risk avoidance. It usually involves developing an alternative strategy that has a higher probability of success, but usually at the higher cost associated with accomplishing a project risk. Next one is risk reduction. It is an investment of funds to reduce the risk on the project. Third one is risk acceptance. That is involving partnering with others to share responsibility for the risky activities. Fourth one is risk transfer. So it is a risk reduction method that shifts the risk from the project to another party. The purpose of insurance on certain items is a risk transfer method. So the risk management process includes plan the risk management, and during the planning we will try to analyze or review the organizational risk policy also. Then identify the risk, the process of identifying individual project risk as well as source of overall project risk, and then documenting those characteristics or process. So for this, we are using different methods like brainstorming, Delphi methods, interviews, root cause analysis, SWOT analysis, assumption analysis, etc. Third step is perform qualitative risk analysis. So in this case, what we are going to do is we are prioritizing the individual project risk for further analysis or actions by assessing their probability of occurrence and impact. Then performs quantitative risk analysis. So in quantitative way, we are evaluating or we are analyzing the process numerically, the identified individual risk and other source of uncertainty on the overall project objectives, which is also called as numerical analysis. Then plan the risk responses. It's like developing options, selecting multiple strategies, and agreeing on the actions to be taken to address the overall project risk exposure as well as to treat individual project risk. Then implement the risk responses. The process of implementing the agreed upon, that is the agreement between the client and the senior management or the employees and the senior management to prepare to make the risk response plans. Then comes monitor the risk. The process of monitoring the implemented or agreed upon risk responses, tracking the identified risk, identifying and analyzing new risk, as well as updating the risk management plan. So this is a total overview of the project risk management, starting from plan risk management, identify the risk, perform qualitative risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, plan risk responses, and control the risk. So each process is having inputs, tools and techniques as well as outputs. Then comes resource planning. So according to project management body of knowledge, it is determining that what resources like people, equipment, materials, etc., and what quantities of each should be used to perform the project activities. For most creative and service-based companies, the resources are people. So resource planning is a process you can use to identify the team members you need to allocate for your project and when you are going to need them. What is important? Resource plan may change and should be adjusted regularly to reflect changes in the scope. Sorry. What's important? Resource plan may change and should be adjusted regularly to reflect changes in the scope, employees, availability, etc., so that your schedule is always up to date. Resource estimation. The goal of activity resource estimating is to assign resources to each activity in the activity list. There are 5 tools and techniques for estimating the activity resources, starting with expert judgment. This means bringing the experts who have done these sorts of work before and getting their opinion on what resources are needed. Second one is analog estimation. Analog estimation is when you look at similar activities from previous projects and how long they took. This only works if the activities and resources are similar. Third one is parametric estimation. This means plugging data about your project into a formula, spreadsheet, database, or computer program that comes up with an estimate. The software or formula that you use for parametric estimation is based on the database or actual duration from the past projects. Bottom-up estimation. Breaking down the complex activities into pieces and working out the resource assignment for each piece. It's a process of estimating individual activity resources needed or cost and then adding these up together to come up with a total estimate. Bottom-up estimating is a very accurate means of estimation, providing the estimates at the schedule activity level are accurate. Then comes alternative analysis, considering several different opinions of how you assign resources. This includes varying the number of resources as well as the kind of resources you use. Many times there are more than one way to accomplish an activity, and alternative analysis helps decide among the possibilities. Then comes resource histogram. So it's a tool which we can tell, often used by the project management team to providing the visual representation of the team and all of those interested parties. So resource histogram is a bar chart, and it is used for the purpose of displaying the specific amounts of time that a particular resource is scheduled to be worked on over a predetermined and specific time period. Resource loading. So resource loading equal to hours of work per time period divided by hours of capacity per time period. So it is the total assigned hours of work divided by the number of hours you have to do the work. So it may be per day, per week, or per month, or per the duration of the project basis. Over allocation of resources. See, when a person or a resource is being given or is being assigned more work than the actual capacity within the given time, it will be over allocation. See here in this picture, it is given Joe Franklin, he is working more than 100% means he is working 8 hours per day. So in certain days he is working like 200%, 300%, 300%. That means he is overloaded or overworked. So how we can able to avoid this? We can do it by resource leveling. So it is used generally to examine the unbalanced use of resources, usually people or equipment, over time for resolving over allocation or conflicts. So when performing the project planning activities, the manager will attempt to schedule certain tasks simultaneously. When more resources such as machines or people are needed than are available, or perhaps a specific person is needed in both tasks, the task will have to be rescheduled sequentially to manage the constraints. So here I given an example. So a project network activity with activities A, B, and C and duration as shown. Activity A has 3 days of slack. Activity C has 2 days of slack. So here A have 2 days of slack. Sorry, A 2 days, B 5 days, and C 3 days. That means A is having 3 days of slack and C is having 2 days of slack. So if we allocate all the resources from the beginning, that is A, B, and C from the beginning, what will happen? In the starting stages, we need 8 workers. Okay, and in second case, A finished, and the third case, C and A they complete. That is only B need to do the work. So resource usage if all the activities start on day 1. So instead of that, what we are going to do is that we will start with A and then B, because A is having 2 days, B is having 5 days. Okay, these 2 days are taken. Then from the remaining, we are taking for B and then adding C over there. So C is having 3 days, A is having two days. So here then 2 and 3, 5 days. So what happened? So it can be completed. That is, we need only 6 workers instead of 8 workers. Just 6 workers is enough. So resource usage, if activity C is delayed 2 days, it's total slack. Then comes budget management. So what is a project budget? The total sum assigned or allocated for the particular purpose of the project for a specific period of time. The goal of budget management is to control the project cost within the approved budget and deliver the expected project goals. Steps designed to help manage the cost of the project: defining the budget, executing the budget, controlling the budget, and updating the budget. The inputs are work breakdown structure, project contracts, resource requirement, resource cost estimates, activity duration estimates, historical information, market conditions, and donor and organizational policies. The outputs are cost estimates by activity, the project budget, and the budget variance report. Resource requirements: human or labor resources. It may include consulting services consisting of the right people with the expertise and skills needed for completing the activities on the project schedule within the schedule and within the time. Equipment and material resources, all specialized tools needed for the project. Financial resources, nothing but the project budget. And time resources, the period of time available and used for the completion of each task. And the duration of the task will depend on the planned and available human. Budget estimates. So we will make three estimates, like a rough estimate, contract estimate, and definitive estimates. So the rough estimate will make during the pre-proposal stage of the project. So the accuracy is like low. Then contract estimates during the initiation phase, and it is medium. And definitive estimates during the planning phase, it is high, -5% to 10%. Method of estimating a budget, which we already discussed, like the analog estimates. What is analog estimates? So it is an estimation techniques used the actual cost of the previous similar projects on the basis of estimating the cost for the current project. Top-down approach. In the top-down approach, it's a budget estimates when the total project budget is known and the project needs to know the cost of each individual activities. Then bottom-up approach, estimating the individual activities and the cost of each input and is added them up to get the project total. Parametric estimates, that is estimating data about your projects into a formula, spreadsheet, or database, or computer programs, whatever it may be, just before I mentioned. So estimates use standardized parameters that define the cost of an activity or task for the specific rate or output. For example, like the cost of training one person, or a rate that can include people, material, and equipment costs that once it is multiplied for the required number of people that needs to be trained. The challenges of project management. So it's always difficult to balance all the elements for a complex project, like time, money, scope, and people. So once if the project manager is having excellent project management training, he can easily manage so that we can avoid the. So the normal challenges are undefined goals. When the goals are not defined, automatically we are not going to get the support from the senior management. Second is scope changes. Occurs when the project management allows the project scope to extend beyond its original objectives, which is also called as scope creep. That means when the client are continuously giving more, means additional requirements, which affects the project schedule, project budget, and timeline. Third one is inadequate skills for the project. Sometimes we need, that's why the project manager should have the 5 skills: PMBOK, management skills, project management skills, project environmental skills, and interpersonal skills. A project sometimes requires skills that the project's contribution does not possess. Once if you are having the project management training, we can avoid this challenge. lack of accountability. So it is the responsibility of the project manager to lead from the front, and for the team members to take the responsibility for his own hand role in achieving the project success. Improper risk management. Learning to deal with and plan for a risk is an essential piece of project management training. And risk tolerance is a desirable project management trait because projects rarely go exactly according to the plan. Then ambiguous contingency plan. So it is very important for the project managers to know exactly what direction to take place, a predefined what if scenario. That means there should be always a plan B. So we are going with plan A. If plan A is not working according to our expectations, we should stick to, or we should shift to plan B. Then the most important thing, that is the poor communication. The project managers provide direction at every step of the project. So each team member of the project should have an updated information about these changes or updates. Impossible timelines. During the project planning itself, we are providing sufficient time, sufficient budget, sufficient schedule. In between, if there exists any time, for example, if the project manager repeatedly asking the team for an impossible deadlines to complete the project or complete the task before the deadline, automatically it is a great challenge. Resource deprivation. In order for a project to be run effectively and efficiently, the management must provide sufficient resources like human, time, as well as money. And last one is the lack of stakeholder engagement. So it may be a disinterested team member, it may be the client who are not supporting or not providing sufficient information. The CEO or vendor can destroy a project quickly without providing them sufficient details. Thank you.